Okay, head scratcher morning for the Calvinist Reformed Tulip people. Calvinist doctrine says that we're totally unable to understand spiritual things at birth. The question is then, how come you trust yourselves when you supposedly think you're a Christian? I thought you were born unable to understand. And we know that God predetermines, according to the Reformed theology, God predetermines all things. At least some believe that. And I know that we all seem to hold at least one or two incorrect doctrines, which means we are living our Christian lives understanding incorrect doctrines or not understanding correct doctrines. Therefore, we're still holding to untruths because God decreed that we would. Yet now we have confidence that we're actually understanding the real truth now that we think we're Christians. So do you see how that doesn't follow? You were born unable. Now that you're a Christian, you're still unable. And you know, let's face it, a lot of reformers will fight tooth and nail. Oh, I have the Spirit now. That's how I know that I know. But you can't know that you know because you were born unable to know in the first place. And some things you admit you don't know biblically. And your other Christian friends that you believe are Christian don't know, which means they were decreed to not know, which brings us back to if you were born unable to not know, and you believe that's a spiritual truth that you were born unable to know, and you still don't know now that you're Christian, how do you know what you think you know? How do you know if you're ever right? Where's your proof? And again, you're going to appeal to a Holy Spirit that's inside of you and reassuring you and persevering you. But the fact of the matter is, the premise you start with is one that immediately defeats the whole thing, right? Again, I don't even remember what I wrote, but there's 3 parts to this one. You know, it becomes a spiritual truth that you can't understand spiritual things. You're totally unable. Yet as soon as you start admitting that you know it, after admitting that God personally determined some things you just wouldn't know, right? God's got a bigger plan or purpose for your life and for his glory. Therefore, he's predetermined that, some people don't know. Let's use Adrian Rogers. Adrian Rogers didn't believe in Reformed theology. He believed that you actually had a choice. Therefore, if Adrian Rogers was wrong and he had a following of millions and his ministry keeps growing, which proves he's a Holy Spirit-filled guy with the passion to teach, preach, share the good news. And he knew a lot of good things, right? Well, in fact, according to Reformed theology, tulip theology, what he knew, he knew incorrectly after he was a Christian, thereby going back to his pre-Christian days where he had total inability and he could only understand, on a cognitive level, but not on a spiritual level. So how, tulip people, Reformed people, to finish at my 4-minute mark, how do you trust anything at all that you believe? How do you trust this Holy Spirit, the spiritual truths, if you were born unable? And we know that God predetermines many to not know, many Christians to not know the truth anyway. I don't think you have a leg to stand on. Head scratchers abound.